Okay, great. Thank you everyone for attending. This is the City of West Sacramento regular meeting of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission. We have a roll call to start, so I will go ahead and turn it over for a roll call.
Thank you. Chair Diaz?
Here.
Vice Chair Sheridan? Commissioner Bell?
Here.
Commissioner Domke? Commissioner Gleason?
Here.
Commissioner Corwitz?
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Perez is absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The agenda is posted online. I will go through each item one by one. First up is General Administration Function Part 1. 1A is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the Commission. The Commission is prohibited by law from discussing issues not on the agenda brought to them at this time. Are there any issues to be brought forward?
I have not received any outside communication for tonight.
Thank you. 1B, Commissioner Communications. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the next portion of our agenda. Number 2, presentations. Update on the Washington District Public Art Implementation Plans Phase 1 project.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Amber Syosset, and I will be presenting the presentation on the update on the Washington District Art Implementation Plans Phase 1 and Phase 2 project. So with that said, I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, please let me know if you're able to see the presentation. Okay, great. All right, so Washington realized, so the development and implementation of a modern public parks and art plan for the Washington District has been about 10 years in the making. So this portion of the presentation, the beginning of the presentation, will be on that Phase 1 portion of that plan. So Washington renewed the 1996 Washington Specific Plan. It added missing content, resolved outstanding problems, and laid the groundwork for a $14 million infrastructure project in the district, funded in part by a $4.1 million Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant. Washington realized recommendations were supported by a multi-year district-wide campaign of community engagement, surveys, education, and vetting. It was during the development of the parks component of Washington realized that public art, circulation, and parks really became intertwined. The 2019 Parks and Open Space Master Plan incorporated parks proposed in Washington realized, and it included a general citywide recommendation to update the city's public art policies, and it considered art in parks to encourage wayfinding, interest, and appreciation for the district's resources and amenities. The 2019 Washington District Public Arts Implementation Plan, what we will now refer to as the WDPAIP, was also initiated as a result of a 2015 National Endowment of the Arts, Our Town grant. It was called River Crossing, which it was a collaboration among the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, the City of West Sacramento, and the Crocker Art Museum. It created a comprehensive plan for public art and art experiences, connecting both cities with pedestrian-friendly pathways and transportation. So the next 2 slides are about the public art policies to really kind of provide that background information for how the plan was developed. So the purpose, right? So the purpose of public art. So public art helps to support a vibrant urban riverfront. It encourages pedestrian, scooter, bicycle travel by adding visual interest and wayfinding to the public streetscape and enriching the pedestrian and bicycling experience. The WDPAIP is the roadmap to expand opportunities to integrate art into the planning, funding, and design of capital improvement projects and new private investment. So the objectives of the art plan. So the art plan really has the capacity to create a sense of place that is really specific to the Washington district and the Grand Gateway area. It creates synergy among public agencies, private institutions, local businesses. It promotes civic pride, identity. We really want the plan to encourage residents and visitors to choose pedestrian, bicycle, and transit level modes of transportation, celebrate and reflect West Sacramento's diversity, history, character, increase tourism, economic vitality, and really establish an arts district around the riverfront and key sports and entertainment destinations. So, and then overall, we just really wanted to present a cohesive art program that can be delivered within a specific time frame, so 10 years. So the content of the WDPIIP. It's really broken down into 3 pieces. So it provides a background, kind of that policy context, right? The types of plans that this policy is incorporated. It includes the summary of community outreach and the existing inventory of the art that we already have within the district. Then it talks about the proposed art concepts, ones that have not been yet implemented, that we plan to implement in that 10-year timeframe. And then it talks about how we go about implementing those art pieces. So really, we wanted to make sure we took the opportunity to kind of explain the Commission's role in the WDPIIP. Sorry for that. So we see the Commission's role kind of in 2 pieces. We see it as playing this conservation role, and then also playing a role in the collection curation. So for conservation, the Commission will really be responsible for considering a comprehensive maintenance and condition survey of the public art collection at least once every 5 years. This survey shall include a report on the location and condition of each work, prioritize recommendations for the restoration and repair of those pieces and the maintenance, and provide the estimated cost for that maintenance and repair. Based on the content of the report, the Commission may be asked to make recommendations or endorse staff recommendations to the City Council for budgetary purposes. So the collection side. Using the WDPAIP, the City will ensure that each work of art is properly accessioned into the collection so that the collection maximizes its unique opportunity to go beyond a series of individual pieces. To create this kind of integrated collection of public art that will address the goals of placemaking, wayfinding, sustainability, and really create that community identity. We want the pieces to be able to talk to each other, right? Not just have these individual standalone pieces. So the Commission will coordinate with the Parks Director, and the Commission will play the role of selecting 2 commissioners to serve on the artist selection panels that makes recommendations to the Commission, right? Because each piece will have a selection panel. And so the way the panels are created would be 2 commissioners would serve on that panel, and then it would be brought to the Commission for a recommendation. The artist selection panel will serve as an advisory body to the Commission. It will have no independent authority to choose pieces. In addition to the 2 commissioners, this 7-person panel, the other 5 that make up that 7-person panel will be of art professionals. And I will go into more about the selection process and the Commission's role in that selection process later in this presentation. All right. So post-solicitation, the plan outlines the following criteria to identify art projects for inclusion in the plan to be considered by the selection panel. So it really creates kind of what will the criteria points we will be using to choose each art piece. Pieces will be evaluated on this criteria, and the panel's assessment of the proposed pieces will be presented to the Commission along with the panel's recommendation on which proposed piece be recommended to the City Council for approval. And again, I think these criteria points just really reflect the policy that was created and really what the objectives of the plan are intended to provide. All right. So now that we've kind of talked about the policy background and kind of how things are implemented and where we can find that information, we kind of wanted to talk about a few projects that have been implemented within the last few years that we consider part of that phase one that got us to the creation of the WDPIIP. So, the plan contains policies and direction regarding the existing art inventory within the district. So it created the temporary installations in addition to new sites and pieces. So the new proposed piece, it has about 13 plus new or reimagined pieces to add to the curated collection that's already existing. So the first piece I wanted to touch on that some of you may be aware of, called The River. It's a poem by Jeff Knorr, and it's actually embedded within the sidewalk. So we call this the East Street Sidewalk Poem, again, called The River by Jeff Knorr. This poem installation, which runs from 5th Street east to 3rd Street, was the first piece in support of the WDPIIP's wayfinding projects along East Street. So the plan talks about East Street wayfinding, C Street wayfinding, and Tower Bridge Gateway wayfinding. Wayfinding projects are a series of small-scale artworks or temporary art installations along east-west corridors leading up to the river. So East Street is designated in Washington Realized for a higher level of improvements, including art features, green elements, and small urban parks. And it serves as a major east-west pedestrian connection to the Riverwalk. So wayfinding is really meant to draw pedestrians from the district and lead them to the river. And the river sidewalk poem was kind of that first piece for that East Street wayfinding project. So the next piece I wanted to talk about was river crossing. I want to communicate with you and the naming of the Etinesh Zalik dock. So to kind of give you a preview of this this project, we have a video that was created, and I'd like to share that video with you now. So Katie, if you wouldn't mind sharing that video, do you need me to stop sharing?
Let me see if it'll allow me to do it. I think it will. It's going to automatically stop sharing yours.
West Sacramento is proud to present a beautiful new dock for boaters on the Sacramento River. It serves as a gateway to West Sacramento's best dining, retail, art, and culture. It's on the beautiful Riverwalk, where you can take in nature, the skylines, and it's even an easy stroll to a River Cats game. To commemorate the new docks, the city worked with British artist Joshua Sofair to create a landmark that would bind the two cities on the river.
This scheme comes from an established connection between West Sacramento and Sacramento, so that people have a sense that they're in one location rather than being in two separate cities. And the challenge for the project was to find an idea that would do that by essentially offering the same opportunity on both sides of the river. We're trying to connect the two cities together. River crossing, I want to communicate with you, was the opportunity for people in Sacramento and West Sacramento to nominate someone to become the name of the dock in their city. So this project is trying to kind of turn around the paradigm whereby public space is named after the rich or the great and the good, and name public space after people that we can connect with perhaps more easily. The stories that are otherwise hidden of people that are important in Sacramento and West Sacramento. The way in which the new names of the dock are commemorated are in large-scale light box installation that spell out the names using maritime signals. So the two names of the grandmothers, the women that have been selected as the names of the new dock, are signaling across the river to each other with the message of the name of the dock.
And I started reading about this concept of extraordinary people among the ordinary, and I immediately thought of my grandmother. It makes me so proud to be from Sacramento. It makes me so proud that there are so many other amazing stories worth telling. I just feel a huge responsibility to continue the legacy that my grandmother started. As her ear co-pilot, I helped deliver supplies to farm worker families and played with the children at each stop along our route. I was too young to comprehend the tears in their mother's eyes when we left. Gratitude, relief, and a silent, unspeakable understanding. She helped establish child care centers for the children of migrant farm workers in parts of Yolo and Sacramento counties. She secured funding for the centers, which provided meals, recreation, and educational curriculum.
I'm just so overjoyed and overwhelmed with emotion. And it would have been perfect for her. She was a 5'1", 5'2" lady with a personality as big as that, as bright as that, with a heart that was of the same stature.
This is an honorable moment for us to be able to recognize the contributions of my grandmother and to be able to ground ourselves here in West Sacramento in a way that honors the river as well. La Mama Hetenesh. In East Africa, the Nile River has always been a point of friendship. Wherever the river runs, the people would gather. The river is where people would take a break, share their secrets, and pour their stories into a vessel that will never overflow. The Hatenesh was my river in a way that she carried my family through infinite journeys and provided a fluid space for communal storytelling. Hatenesh lived in a small home in West Sacramento and passed away in 2016. She was a stream of hope for her mother and continues to provide solace wherever she flows.
If our mother was here, really, she would be so much honored, humbled, and with all dignity and humility, she would cry. She always flows with this river.
Great, thank you, Katie. All right, and I will go ahead and share my screen once again. Okay. So thank you for that being able to play that for us. It's always a joy watching that. So just to kind of give you a phase one recap, right? So again, phase one was really that policy development, making sure that it's incorporated into our planning documents, and then a few of those are implementation projects. So phase one of the development and implementation of a modern public parks and art plan for the Washington district has been 10 years in the making. It consisted of extensive community education and outreach, incorporation of parks and art policy within city planning documents, creation of the WDPAIP, and two major art installation projects, the sidewalk poem, The River by Jeff Knorr, and River Crossing, I Want to Communicate with You, and the naming of the Etinesh Salute Dock. So now moving on to phase two. So phase two of the Washington District Public Arts Implementation Plan kind of kicks off the installation of the recommended art pieces within the WDPAIP. It includes the B Street Communications Tower and a continuation of that E Street wayfinding project. So the first project, the B Street Communications Tower. So this structure is the former police communications tower. It represents an opportunity to create a highly visible icon or beacon for the Washington district and for the city of West Sacramento. Using it as an armature for a major light installation, it would create both a night and day presence for the district and the city. The budget for this piece is approximately $350,000 to $400,000, and the installation is estimated to occur in fall 2022. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process for this art piece for the installation. So following the policy guidance within the WDPAIP, the city contracted with a professional arts consultant, Shelley Willis Consulting, to assist staff in the solicitation, the curation, and the installation of the B Street Tower project. Ms. Willis has worked with the city on other major art installations within the city and has vast experience working with cities and municipalities on public art installations. So due to the WDPIAP recommending a very clear piece for the B Street Tower, right? It recommends that it's a light piece and the tower would act as an armature to that light piece. A limited request for qualifications was released to artists of a specific artistic media who the art consultant recommended would be successful in proposing on the type of piece recommended within the plan. As part of this request for qualifications, proposed art concepts for the piece were also requested as part of that initial solicitation. 4 artists agreed to respond to the request, and the proposals are due to the city this July 5th, so next week. Again, this process complies with the WDPIAP for this specific piece and the type of challenges that this piece can face, being so massive, being that it's a light installation. So as you can see from the slide, we've outlined the next steps in this process from kind of where we are, right? We're to receive proposals July 5th. So this slide that you see in front of you kind of takes into consideration those next steps now. So the selection panel will be comprised of 2 commissioners, 2 ACHP commissioners, and 5 art professionals. So it'll be a 7-person panel. And it'll be that panel, and this panel will be unique for this piece. Shelley Willis will staff the selection panel and provide guidance and overview of the proposals to assist the panel in making a recommendation. So as you can see on selection C, right? So establish artist shortlist to propose on the project. So that piece has kind of already been done, right? We went out, we entered into stipend agreements with the artists who agreed to propose on the project. They received a small stipend for their work and their proposals as the plan outlines. Then once the panel is created, the panel reviews the artist proposals and makes a recommendation to the commission, to the ACHP Commission. The next step is approval, right? So the panel makes the recommendation to the commission. Then the commission will make a recommendation of which art piece to the city council. So the city council will then consider that recommendation and may or may not choose to execute an artist contract for the approval of and installation of that art piece. Right, so then installation. Oh, sorry about that. So with the installation, once we receive that contract, the consultant will work with the artist for permitting and installation of that piece, and it will be in conjunction with the North Riverwalk Extension project. So we again estimate this to be around fall 2022 for the installation. So again, this kind of outlines that entire process for this piece, but this slide specifically is kind of, after the solicitation process, what are the next steps? All right, so moving on to the second piece, that's part of this kind of phase 2, this kickoff of the recommended projects. We have what's Heritage Green Park Public Art Installation. So this art piece is really the next piece that supports that E Street wayfinding project. that'll work in combination with that sidewalk poem to draw pedestrians to the river. So Heritage Green Park is a public neighborhood park that was envisioned in Washington Realized and is recommended in the 2019 Parks and Open Space Master Plan. So I will get to the location of this park. It is on E Street. It's just south of just west of 5th Street. So Heritage Green Park is currently located on private property and will be built in coordination. The improvements for the park will be built in coordination with a private development project. Once the park is complete, the park land improvements and the installed art piece will be dedicated to the city. The art piece to be installed will be selected by the city and installed by the developer, along with the construction of other improvements for the park. So we really wanted to make sure that the improvements for the park, like the foundation and any type of supportive improvement that was needed for the piece, were really done in coordination. So that way the art piece wasn't coming in 2 years later, or the art piece was being done before and then not having the improvements to support it there. So we really wanted to make sure that this piece was done with the park improvements at the same time. And then this is just some elevations of the proposed private development, 440 West. More on the project. Oh, I'm sorry. So a few notes on the project. So the private development project 440 West is a proposed 106-unit single-family home community. Through a development agreement between the city and the developer will be required to build the park improvements, install the art piece per the city standards and approvals, and then it'll dedicate the park, the improvements, and the art piece to the city. So this is the location of Heritage Green Park. So as you can see, here's East Street and 7th Street, and 5th Street is over here. This is Harriet Lane condominiums, just for reference. It's actually over here more. But this is the location of the park. So it's on the corner of 6th Street and E Street. And then this is that 106-unit planned single-family private development of 440 West. Okay. So the piece envisioned for the site will be the furthest west piece as part of the E Street wayfinding project. And will work with the sidewalk poem to draw pedestrians to the river. This piece is really envisioned as something vertical. Not only do we want the piece to draw attention to the east-west corridor, but we also want the piece to communicate welcomeness and act as an invitation to the neighborhood public park, right? Because although this is a private development, this park will be a public park. So as you can see from this image, we've located the piece right at the corner of the park, fronting E Street. And it'll act as the entry point to the park, right? And the beginning piece for the E Street wayfinding. We want residents and pedestrians to feel welcome to come to this park. Even though it's going to be very adjacent to this private development, we want this piece to kind of communicate like, hey, everyone's welcome. This is a public park. Kind of come check this out. This is something that is a resource here for everyone to use. So what we've done with this piece is we've kind of outlined the solicitation process for you. In the beginning, I talked a little bit about it, but really outlined from solicitation on. So right now we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the solicitation. So with the B Street Tower, we went into depth on the typical process of the selection of the piece, the approval, and installation. This project will follow that same process, that same selection, approval, and installation. However, because B Street Tower had very clear definition of the type of installation, right? It was a light installation, had challenges associated just because of the massing of the piece. Only qualified artists were invited to respond to the request for qualifications and proposals. So although this piece is envisioned as something vertical, the type of form is not clearly defined. So because of this, the solicitation will take a more standard approach, right? So standard approach being policy bases and art concepts, site control and funding, and the solicitation will be more standard. The solicitation is something that we will more standardly see with the other project. So policy basis in art concepts. So staff identifies a public art site or project to commence. And a lot of times this is based on funding opportunities or existing infrastructure projects. We will consult the WDPIAP for preliminary art concepts, estimated budget, solicitation process, local preference policies, the artist selection process, etc. So then moving to site control and funding. So securing site control, right? And we've kind of done that with Heritage Green through that DA, right? We've secured, even though it's being done on private property, we're securing that by requiring that dedication. Identify the funding source and, if necessary, seek a budget action. Coordinate with the developer on the public space designs, as they will be constructing the park and the foundation and context for the art piece. And execute the 440 West development agreement. So those last 2 points are kind of more relevant for this actual piece. Solicitation. So as you're aware, for B Street, we kind of did that more limited solicitation. So here, we will solicit and hire an arts consultant, again, to manage the panel creation and solicitation process. We will issue an open request for qualifications, meaning it's not going to be to a certain artist group, or it's really open for kind of anybody to propose on. We will create the selection panel unique for this piece again. And then the selection panel will review and rank the received statement of qualifications, and it will recommend a short list of artists who they wish to see actual proposals from. So we're kind of separating that qualifications from the proposals this time. So once we have that, then it will basically follow, it will basically follow that previous one that we had. So selection, approval, and installation. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of provided that background, kind of that phase one, that first 10 years, that kind of showed us how we got to this point. And then kind of the proposed upcoming project, right? That phase two, that kickoff of those recommended installation pieces. And then we also wanted to explain the commission's role and the work that they would be playing and providing for this process, and then kind of outlining that process for you. So I know that was a lot to take in. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and staff will be available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. That was very informative. I actually have a couple questions. So are there actions that we need to take tonight to move this forward, or is there anything that we need to be doing in response to your presentation for tonight?
Yeah, so tonight we are not asking the commission for any actions. Right now, we're just presenting kind of that update as the plan has already been approved, and we're just kind of in that implementation phase, right? Doing things to implement. So we just wanted to provide that update to you and kind of let you know where we are and kind of what we will be coming forward to ask the commission for in the future.
And then my other question was, you mentioned there was a 7-person panel. 2 of those positions would be by arts commissioners. There'd be city staff on there as well. Who else would be on there? And does that 7-person commission or 7-person panel cover both the B Street Tower and the Heritage Park, or are those 2 separate?
Yeah, so I'll actually answer your last question first. So they will be 2 separate panels. Okay. And then your first question, so it's a 7-person panel. 2 commissioners will be requested to sit on the panel. And then the remaining 5 will be art professionals. So no city staff will be on the panel, but we will have the arts consultant there to kind of provide guidance to the panel, to kind of help interpret some of the proposals. They work closely, with artists, so they kind of have that, understanding and that interpretation of it. So we want to be able to have someone there who the panel can ask questions to.
Fabulous. I'd like to open it up if there's any other questions from the commissioners.
I don't necessarily have a question. I just had a comment, which was, I just think that, again, the city does an outstanding job of presenting the possibilities of art, and so much thought and mindfulness has gone into it. And I'm just really impressed. And and happy to have gotten to see this presentation in all its glory. So thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Commissioner Gleason?
So which is the first potential group going to need to be decided? Which project is coming up first?
Yeah, so in terms of approval and the panel creation, it will be the B Street Communications Tower. So we hope to bring a recommendation to the commission for that piece at the August meeting. That's what we're anticipating based on the current schedule. So with that said, we will need to create a panel pretty quickly, and then we will host that day. So it'll probably, usually or typically, it'll be a day or half day where the panel is dedicated, or the panel members have dedicated about 4, 5, 6 hours to that selection process. And then, have the meeting, make that recommendation. It consists of like scoring, things like that, review. So once we have that meeting and that recommendation, we hope to be ready to come back to the commission in August.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Yes. Hi, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a quick question. And thank you for the presentation, Amber. If you want to come back to the commission in August, then do you need 2 commissioners to be available in July, I'm guessing? So do you need 2 commissioners to volunteer this evening? Or how would you like to follow up?
So we really, our understanding, we will have the commissioners work with you, or you work with the commissioners to select 2. Everyone, it's just any 2 from the commission. It could be volunteer, it could be through selection. I mean, that process is, how you guys want to do that. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be tonight. If it's something that you think that needs that action, then it wouldn't be part of this presentation though. So unless Katie, if you had anything to say on this, or Tracy, if you had ideas on how you would like to see that process move forward.
Well, I can certainly follow up and send an email out to commissioners. Normally in the past, what happens is if we have 2 slots, knowing that there are going to be actually a number of public art installation opportunities coming up in the near future. So it's great to have a lot of people interested. If there are more than 2 people interested, we can do things like, pull a name out of a hat, basically, just to make it fair for everybody, to give them an opportunity to participate. If there are, only 2 commission members in this meeting right now that are interested and think they're available, we can go ahead and have that interest identified now. So at least you have the commission members teed up for this first effort. There'll be a lot of others coming up in the future. And then I know you don't have the date identified yet. So sometimes that impacts commissioner availability. So if we have 2 or 3 that are interested this evening, we can take 2 and have 2 be the primary and have a 3rd commissioner be an alternate should another commissioner not be available on that date. So given that we have a smaller group this evening, I would like to at least know if there are any commissioners present this evening that would be interested in serving on this panel. You can raise your hand and let us know. And then if we see more than 2, then we can follow up with you. If we only have 2, then we've got our 2.
So this is Carrie. I have a quick question, Amber, or maybe Tracy. What are you thinking the time commitment is for that?
Yeah, so typically it's a half day, right? So 8 to 12, 8 to 1, lunch will be usually provided. It is a longer process just because you have to review each of the proposals, and then you have scoring, and then you have to reach that consensus, and then formulate that recommendation. So it is about, I would say, 6 hours that we would need to be dedicated to that process.
Okay. But it would just be a one-time deal,
Correct.
Not an ongoing.
Correct. And there may be little emails back and forth, in terms of communication, but in terms of like being present at a meeting or anything, it would just be that one day.
Okay, perfect. Just wondering because it's, summertime and everybody has their plans, but yeah, that's doable. Thank you.
I saw that Commissioner Gleason had a question.
Do we know about, so would this take place if we volunteer tonight? Are we looking at a July date for this meeting to represent then in August to the council or back to this commission? Or are we looking at the 1st of August?
So we're pushing for July. We want to be able to have some time afterwards to kind of get everything organized so that way we can present that recommendation to the commission. So we're anticipating a July date. So like mid-July, later July.
And if people aren't sure, if people aren't sure of their schedule, we can certainly just wait until we get the date. We can send an email out to all the commissioners, and if we have a lot of interest, we'll put all the names in a hat. We'll pull names, and then we'll give other commissioners priority for the next opportunity. So then maybe that might be a little bit easier once we land on a date, because I know it is summertime and people have busy schedules.
I think that might be the most logical way to move forward. Because I know, at least for myself, it would be really difficult to commit or volunteer if I don't know the day of the week, in particular, because some days are harder than others. And is it usually during the week, or is it on weekends? Okay.
Usually during the week.
Okay. I think that if we had a date to work from, maybe then sending an email to everyone to let them volunteer would be my vote.
Okay, I can definitely get that date.
Thank you so much, Amber. That was a really wonderful presentation. I learned a lot watching it.
Thank you.
Anything else on this item before we move forward? Great, wonderful. Do you mind unsharing your screen? We'll go back to everyone's faces. Perfect.
Sorry.
I'm going to move forward to the next item on the agenda. It's the consent agenda, number 3, consideration of approval of the minutes for the April 26, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I bring forth a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Gleason. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bell. I second.
Great, thank you. We can go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Gleason?
Aye.
Commissioner Corwitz?
Commissioner Corwitz, you're on mute if you're trying to vote.
I'll wait for her. And I meant to call Commissioner Bell first.
Aye for Commissioner Bell.
Thank you. And if I could just get a verbal for Commissioner Corwitz. Might be having technical issues.
Yeah. Is there a way to keep that open and we can come back to it?
We can come back to it, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll keep that roll open. The next item on the agenda is the General Administration Function Part 2, number 5 on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped something. A regular agenda item number 4, update on Fire Station 41 Public Art Bench project.
Good evening, Chair Diaz and Commissioners Bell, Gleason, and Korowitz. tonight. This is our third meeting discussing the exciting public art bench project that we hope will be one of our upcoming future art projects. And as you recall, in February, the commission actually asked staff to look into Fire Station 41. There had been the renovation years back of the station. And as a part of that, across the street, there was the public art bench that had been installed in sort of the parking area. And all of you got to see visuals of that last meeting. And the intention was that that would be finished as a public art project, celebrating the community at some point in the future. In April, we came back and talked about it a little more. That was when we were able to give some more visuals and give more background on the renovation project of the station and the bench itself. At that time, there were a lot of staffing changes and funding limitations that happened. And the project kind of got paused. That's the truth. And so it was never completed. And this commission brought up what a great project this would be to get done. And so staff was directed to look into a process to secure art consultation services and look into using public art funds to complete the project. At our last meeting in April, the commission unanimously approved that recommendation to complete it and to use public art fund money to support the artist solicitation and the selection process, the art fabrication, and the installation. Additional feedback from the commission was interested in us further exploring art consultation services for the process and potentially leveraging other potential funding sources to reduce the amount of public art fund needed for the project. Our director, Tracy, actually did look into potential other funding. She reached out to the West Sacramento Foundation. That was one of the funding sources that were discussed to explore grant opportunities for the public art project. And we found out that the West Sacramento Foundation is not issuing grants in 2021. And based on their current criteria, a public art project would not qualify. So it's not eligible for the use of their funds. And we're not aware of any other funds available at this time to support the project. What we have done also in the meantime is we have reached out, you heard a little bit tonight about some other projects where we have used one art consultant, Shelley Willis, very successfully with some projects. And you were given in your packet her proposal for your review. And in kind of summary, her proposal includes managing maybe a more limited artist selection process. And Amber talked a little bit about that and how what that's looked like in some of these other successful projects that are being implemented now. Rather than an open call process. And an artist would be selected based on their past work and an interview rather than a design competition. If the commission prefer a design competition, Ms. Willis recommends paying the artists a stipend or honorarium. And I believe that came up at our last commission meeting. Commissioner Gleason spoke to successful use of honorariums to really kind of get some quality submissions and things. So that was a part of her, to summarize her proposal that was included. Her proposal would likely be on a more condensed schedule. And also looking at numbers, the amount for her proposal is less, and it looks like maybe more public art funds would go to the project. So the other proposal that was received was from YOLO Arts. And the city has years back worked with YOLO Arts successfully on some of our public art projects, maybe bigger projects, some of those past ones. And to basically kind of talk about them, they are proposing developing a formal art advisory committee and art plan, issuing an RFP or request for qualifications. And they would serve as the liaison to select the artist for contracting, community outreach, and participation if that was applicable, and the installation of artwork. And they would assist as needed with unveiling and celebration of artwork. And it's kind of a more robust solicitation process, probably more time, and it comes with a higher price tag. Basically you can kind of see that there's an estimate that it would be 20% of the project. And both of these proposals in working with them, they both have suggested the amount which staff had ballpark given at the last meeting, $50,000 for the art project piece itself. That is the budget that they both also recommended. So YOLO Arts, their fee would be 20% of whatever the actual art piece runs. So you can kind of do that math, and that was included in your report. And the other consultant looks to be less. And tonight we're basically asking the commission to, give us some feedback on the project and give us ideas on what you're thinking as far as the two proposals and what you suggest. And then we're asking you to approve use of public art fund. And right now we're proposing $50,000 for the piece. And you can see with these two consultants what the amounts would be associated if we were to use either of those. So with that, any questions you might have, and I will try to answer them. And if I can't, I've got Tracy here and she will try to help me as well.
Thank you so much, Connie. I have a couple of questions. I'll just kick it off. I understand we have worked with both entities that have given money before. Can you tell me, for example, what has YOLO Art done for us? Like which pieces of art have we worked on with them, and which pieces have we worked with Shelley on before? Just so I have an idea.
I know YOLO Arts. I don't know when the last time we worked with them. Tracy, I'm not sure if you know, if it was Joey Lopes' piece, maybe. Mm-hmm. Okay, Joey Lopes, if you're familiar with the boxer Joey Lopes and the piece that's at Joey Lopes Park. And then prior to that, I know the Fluttering Cascade, my piece in the Fluttering Canopy at the West Sacramento Community Center. I know YOLO Arts also worked on that piece. Tracy, is there any other pieces that you can think of?
I think YOLO Arts may have helped with the books outside of the library, even though that wasn't a city project. And even some of the art that's inside the library, I'm thinking because that was a county project. I'm not 100% sure, but
I think you're right, because when it comes to the county, they're kind of the county's organization. And then you've obviously kind of just heard in the presentation that you just received before that Miss Willis has worked on several projects recently with the city, and it's been a very successful arrangement. So some very great pieces and work. So
fantastic. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments?
I think this is going to probably come down to dollars and cents in the long run, it sounds like. So if we don't have a budget to work with that are city funds for art proposals, we're going to have to take probably the best offer that we can get unless have we ever done crowdsourcing for any of our proposals before from city members or other businesses? I mean, businesses are wrecked after COVID this last year, but have we ever tried that before?
No.
I don't think so. And I know that with public art, we really want to make sure that we have somebody who can help us facilitate the not only the selection process, but also the installation process and the agreement that needs to happen to make sure that it's a piece that we can maintain long term and safe for public access. So we don't have that in-house expertise to do that. So I'm not sure how the crowd.
Well, I think the crowdsourcing would just be the getting of the funds, and we would still hire either one or the other, either Willis or YOLO Arts.
Well, we do have funding. We have public art fund money, then that's the purpose of the fund, really. We have projects pay into that fund, and most of the projects you heard about earlier this evening are all being paid for by other sources of funding. They're part of projects, or they're part of a larger planning process that has access to other funds. So a lot of what's happening in the Washington area, we're not using our current public art fund money to support that at all. In fact, the public art fund balance that we have now, we haven't spent any of that money in a long time, if any at all, because we've been fortunate in that most of the public art that has happened over the last several years has all been a result of projects paying for that art. So we haven't had to tap into the public art fund. Now, each project that is that triggers the requirement to pay into the public art fund could choose to not do a project on site, pay the fee, it goes into the fund. That like we have the city's new corporation yard that's coming online. That is a city facility building that will be required to pay the 1% public art fee unless they choose to try to create public art on site. We haven't had that discussion yet, but that project could very well add to the funding that we have in our current public art fund. So I wouldn't, just as the director of the department and looking at what's happened with this fund over time, I would like to encourage you to explore using the money for this project. This is one of those projects that is a one-off project that doesn't happen to be part of another project that has the money to pay for the art. A lot of the other work that you're going to be involved with in the future is all will be part of project budgets that have their own source of funding. So this is just one of those one-off projects at smaller scale. We have the funding available. We could choose to lower the budget amount if the commission is really not comfortable recommending the amount that the art consultants have suggested for us. We could certainly do that and then see what we get. But I think that the Public Art Fund can handle this project. And I know that we'll have more funding coming in to support new public art over the next several years.
I misunderstood. I thought we didn't have the funds for it. So that was my bad.
Yeah, no, it was a good question, because I think at the last meeting, Commissioner Domke suggested that we try to leverage the funding we do have just to reduce the amount we needed to draw down from the fund. And we did explore one of the options that she specifically recommended. And it just wasn't an eligible use. It could change as the Community Foundation is looking at updating their current grant program guidelines. So they could decide in the future year to include public art as an eligible use. And then we could certainly apply for funding for future projects. But I think we've had this money sitting in this fund for quite some time. It hasn't been spent, and we know that this is kind of a long overdue project. And it would be really nice to get it completed in the not too distant future.
I motion that we go for it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners on this?
Hi, this is Commissioner Bell. Yes, I would like to see this project completed. And if we have the funds, I think that 50,000 is an adequate amount for what I would like to see for our city are, wonderful spots that we see in Instagram and, that sort of draw attraction to our city. And I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, I'll second Cheryl's motion.
Wonderful. I have just one more question for city staff as we move forward, because I think part of this is not just approving moving forward, but are we making a recommendation on which to use, Yellow Arts or Ms. Willett? Are there any recommendations from city staff on which you'd prefer to work with on either of these, or is this really just two great entities? And
really two great entities, and neither would be bad, but quite honestly, as Commissioner Gleason pointed out, bang for the buck, we are recommending the more frugal, so we can get more of the money going toward the actual art piece. So yeah, but they're both great options. So
wonderful. Commissioner Gleason, would you consider changing your motion to not just moving forward, but also to move forward with Ms. Willis as the Ms. Willis? Sorry, I keep saying Willis. Ms. Willis as the what is the title? Art consultant.
Yeah, public art consultant. Yeah, for this project.
I so motion that we use the Willis for our bench project.
Wonderful. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Corwitz. Yes, Tracy.
Chair Dees, I just want to clarify that this item does have to go to City Council for approval. So the recommendations that are being acted upon tonight are a recommendation to take to Council for their approval.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Any other comments before we take the vote then to make the motion of a recommendation to City Council? Okay, great. We can call a roll then. Do we need a vote on that? Yeah. Okay, we're ready to vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Gleason?
Aye.
Commissioner Corwitz?
Aye.
And Chair Diaz?
Aye. Thank you. Can we go back to item number 3, which was the consent agenda, consideration of approval for the minutes, and call any absent members?
Thank you. I did record all votes except for Commissioner Corwitz to approve the minutes. I could get your verbal, Commissioner.
Commissioner Corwitz, are you available to unmute?
Yeah, sorry. It's really hard to hear Catherine on my computer. I had to turn it up.
Sorry
so
about that.
Yes, I approve. I vote to approve the minutes. Sorry.
Thank you. Catherine, is that it?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Moving on back onto the agenda then. The next portion is General Administration Function Part 2. It's item number 5. We'll start with the Director's Report.
Thank you. Well, I'm really excited to share that in just a few days we'll be in July, and July is Parks Make Life Better Month. It's actually celebrated nationally as Parks and Recreation Month by the National Recreation and Parks Association, and then in our state, the California Parks and Recreation Society that promotes Parks Make Life Better Month all month long. And so I am so excited about all of the great work that our department's doing to highlight our great parks and recreation system and our programs, and Connie and her staff are working to put together a lot of really fun activities. I wanted to highlight a few of them, and if I've missed any, Connie, please feel free to jump in. But in July, you can look forward to Agents of Discovery, which is a really great interactive feature that you can play in our parks and trails. We will be locating this feature at select sites throughout the month, a different park or trail site each week. And it's sort of like Pokemon Go. So you have to download the app and you can use your mobile devices to play the game. And we've already started to advertise for this on our website and social media platforms. So that's going to be happening. We're going to be highlighting this year a lot of our part-time staff. Last year, we celebrated and introduced the community to our full-time staff, but during the summer months, especially in July, we rely so heavily on our part-time staff to implement all of our programming that we thought it would be really great to highlight them. So our summer camps, our swim lessons, rec swim with our lifeguards, senior programming, adaptive recreation, all of that is heavily reliant on our part-time staff. So we're excited to be highlighting them this summer, and especially this summer where it's been so challenging to get our programs back up and running after being off for a while, and getting people back into these positions. Those people who have showed up and are doing a great job with our programs really need to be celebrated. We're also going to be highlighting some of our community members. The theme for the National Recreation and Parks Association has identified some suggested themes for us to focus on. One is about what parks mean to our community members. And so we're going to be reaching out to some of our community members to highlight stories of their experiences in our parks. And then also I wanted to highlight that the Heritage Oaks Park Master Plan effort will kick off the last week of July. To celebrate the last week of Parks Make Life Better month, we're going to be launching a few open houses on the park site. One will be Thursday morning, July 29th, and the other one will be on Friday, early evening, late afternoon, where we'll have a shaved ice truck, and both events will provide opportunities for the community to participate in an interactive scavenger hunt on site, using that game as a way to collect information from people on some of the amenities they'd like to see in the park, as well as a general open house where we can answer questions and get feedback from our community. So we really want to make sure we have a great representation from our entire community at this park. It is a community park site, so it does serve a larger demographic than just the immediate neighbors, but we're also going to be reaching out to all of the residents that live near the park site. And we hope that you'll be able to participate in at least one of the events. We're working on having some prizes for people who show up to participate. So look forward to more information about that in the coming weeks. And then I also wanted to just highlight that effective June 15th, outdoor park rentals and special events are now permitted. So we've been gearing up to start processing rental and special event permit applications for outdoor activities. Our indoor facility rentals are still very limited. During the summer months, they're all being used for our summer programs. So we won't be able to offer our facilities, indoor facilities for events or rentals until the fall. But we are accepting applications for rentals after September 1st. And then to accompany that, we are also working on some updates to our municipal code related to special events. What we found is that the municipal code is a little bit dated, so we are creating some consistencies between different components of the municipal code as it relates to special events. We're looking at our fees to make sure that we are aligning our fees with increased costs of processing applications and supporting events, but also remaining, affordable to our community and competitive based on what our neighboring jurisdictions are doing. And we will have some information, hopefully, for you at your next commission meeting about that. And that concludes my update. Connie, if I've missed anything, please feel free to jump in.
Tracy, I think you did a great job. I think you covered it. There'll also be a proclamation by our mayor proclaiming it Parks and Recreation Month, and that will be videoed, and you'll get to see that. And Tracy loves being on camera because as the director, she's got to accept the proclamation. But yes, that the mayor will also proclaim it, and it will be proclaimed at Memorial Park this year during a week of some Little League tournaments, which is such a wonderful use of that park. So that's the only part I could think of. Tracy, you covered it all.
Thank you. I do have one question. If we are issuing permits for events inside locations as well as parks now, would it be possible to put the Tamale Festival idea back on the table for perhaps even late this year?
That's a good question. We are actually processing permits from private organizations or other organizations that are running their own events. It is not the city-led events right now. We already have our events identified, and we did receive council approval through the budget process recently to explore a summer concert series for next summer. And so that's one of the programmed events that we as the city are trying to start thinking about and organizing. But we haven't really worked to create any new events that would be city run, but we could certainly support other organizations that are interested in doing that. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions or comments from the other commissioners?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand on Zoom because I use Google Meets all school year. I know how to do that, but so thank you for the presentation, Tracy, and I'm so happy to see that our part-time Park and Rec staff is going to be acknowledged, because I just want to say, as somebody that worked at the school, your ACES people were on it, and they provided such a huge support to our families and our kids. And it was so nice to work with them this year. And, as soon as one classroom got full, you guys opened a new cohort. So good job, Tracy and Connie, for your work and your support to our schools and our students and our families, number one. So happy to see that they'll be recognized. Lots of great events coming up. Can't wait to go to the Heritage Park one and check it out and be a part of that. So thank you for your work, both of you, this year. It's not been an easy year by any means for any of us. So, but you guys did great.
Thank you, Commissioner Korowitz, for sharing that. And I do know that you see and know, and you're there at the schools, and you know why we are so proud of our part-time staff that work with the community and the youth. And everything you said is just very appreciated. And I will make sure to share that with them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I have one comment. Have we ever partnered for a utility box wrap program in West Sac?
No, we haven't done that yet.
I got comments by residents, a couple residents who live in West Sac, on as you descend into West Sac from Sacramento onto Jefferson, and you see welcome to West Sac, and there's some flowers and whatnot, and then there's two really ugly looking, distracting utility boxes there that would look much better if they were artfully wrapped. So I promised that I would bring it up to the commission as a possibility for the future.
Great idea. I know I've seen that in other communities, and it would be a really interesting use of our public art fund money, which is what we would probably target to use. And unless some other funding source became available, but I think they're really, really great features to turn that infrastructure into something really interesting. And I know there are a few other organizations you could certainly reach out to just to explore how they implemented the program.
Well, I can tell you that, so I work in Rancho Cordova, and I can tell you that the city is all abuzz about all of the 26 boxes that we just did this year. And it was Rancho Cordova's first really public art piece. So in that respect, WESAC is far ahead because this was our first piece here. And everybody was just glowing with, oh, this taking pictures, this is on my block and this is on my block, and look at the one that's right across from the school I go to. And it made such a huge impact. And so I can be helpful in how to get that done because I've done it here.
That would be wonderful. If we can connect offline and you can share the information that you have, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I do want to add, I am so appreciative to be on this commission. I love working with all of you guys, Tracy, Connie, everyone on staff. I really enjoy these meetings, and I love learning about everything that's happening. And I really want to play that Pokemon game that you mentioned. So I will be looking that up shortly. Anything else under item number 5 after the director's report, future item request? Wonderful. I think with that, I think we are ready to adjourn. We covered a lot in this meeting today, really quickly. Thank you, everyone. I think with that, do we need to take a vote on adjourning, or are we good? We do need to take a vote. I always forget. I think I ask that every meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gleason. We can go ahead and take a vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Gleason.
Aye.
Commissioner Corwitz.
Aye.
And Chair Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for everyone for attending, especially Commissioner Bell from vacation, and everyone have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you for a wonderful meeting, all. Cheers for all of our success.
Just so you all know, if I know that this is kind of off the record, but if any of you